Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you're watching this. My name is Kristin Fearnow. I'm an immigration attorney with Dornan, Troia, Howard, Breitkreutz, and Conway here in Omaha. I'm also an adjunct professor of immigration law at UNO through OLLAS. I want to thank OLLAS for giving me the opportunity to do this video and talk to you today about something called the Immigration Court Representation Project. This is a project that I started about a year ago. The purpose of this project is to bridge the gap between the nonprofit sector and the private bar to provide more access to legal counsel for immigrants in removal proceedings. I want to start out today by talking about what removal proceedings are, the impact of legal representation in removal proceedings, and the goals of the Immigration Court Representation Project. So to start with, we're going to begin with removal proceedings. I'm going to be giving you a very basic overview of removal proceedings. Removal proceedings are very complex, so we're going to be getting just a little bit of information today. Removal proceedings are the main legal mechanism by which the government or the Department of Homeland Security initiates the removal process or is trying to deport immigrants. This is done by the filing of a document called a notice to appear with the Immigration Court or the Executive Office for Immigration Review. After this document is filed, a hearing is generated and the immigrant is required to show up for court and present a defense if they qualify. In removal proceedings, there's an immigration judge who will preside over the hearing. They'll take any applications that the immigrant submits, listen to testimony, consider evidence, and render a decision. There's also an attorney from the Department of Homeland Security, or ICE, who represents the government. This is similar to a prosecutor in a criminal matter, but it's not exactly the same. And then the immigrant is there. And the immigrant can present a defense if they qualify. Overwhelmingly, the burden of proof is on the immigrant in these proceedings, which is different from a criminal court where the burden of proof is on the government. While immigrants have a right to legal representation in removal proceedings, that right is not grounded in the Constitution. And as a result, if an immigrant cannot afford an attorney, they are not going to be provided one at government expense like someone would be in a criminal case. So for this reason, many immigrants proceed in court without legal representation, and this can be disastrous. We know that the impact of legal representation in immigration court is vast. Nearly 80% of immigrants who are represented in immigration court apply for a form of relief or a defense, versus 13% who are not represented in immigration court. And if you don't apply for a defense, you will get deported or be forced to take voluntary departure. So just at the outset, you can see the vast difference between representation and just being able to present a defense that might allow you to stay in the country. But because immigration court or removal proceedings can be very complicated, having competent legal representation is extremely important. And so we can also see the impact of that legal representation beyond just people who are able to apply for status, but as well as the results of those applications and presenting that defense. Nearly 65% of immigrants who had legal counsel in court are able to win their case and stay in the US, versus only 13% of immigrants who proceed pro se or on their own win their case and are able to stay in the US. That is a huge difference. So we can see right there through statistics that the impact of having competent legal representation can make a huge difference in your case. That is a 30,000-foot view, but there's a lot that goes into this because sometimes it's not just the ability of having an attorney who can understand what the legal requirements are for a certain form of relief, such as asylum or cancellation of removal, or an attorney who can maybe present an argument that a crime does not in fact make someone deportable. But oftentimes there's other forms of relief that immigrants can be applying for that are not under the jurisdiction or authority of an immigration judge. And having an immigration attorney who can recognize that relief and apply for it and then help you ask for continuances in your case can be very important, because oftentimes when we have someone in removal proceedings, we're doing more than one thing for them. So they might be applying for a defense in front of the judge, and they may also be filing an application with the administrative branch of immigration, also known as USCIS, and a judge does not have any jurisdiction over that application. So a judge can't hear that, but it's important to have competent legal representation who can go into court and explain to the judge what's happening. this has never been more true or more important than under our current administration. As a quick bit of background on the immigration court is not a separate court like most courts are. The immigration court is actually a part of the Department of Justice. And as a result, that means the immigration courts are overseen directly by the Attorney General. So for example, when we present a case in immigration court, if we're unsuccessful and we want to appeal, we appeal to the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is also a part of the Department of Justice. And when cases are on appeal at the Board of Immigration Appeals, the Attorney General of the United States can actually take a case and certify it to himself and issue a decision. It's almost as if the Attorney General can act as a one-man Supreme Court. And what we've seen under the current administration is a great deal of rolling back of asylum protections and other protections in an immigration court that allow people to make the most of other petitions or applications they have available, because the Attorney General has certified a vast number of cases to himself and issued precedent decisions, which means those decisions become the law. And they've really tied the hands and limited options of immigrants. So now more than ever, we know that having an attorney is extremely important in immigration court. And so what I want to do is talk to you about what the Immigration Court Representation Project is meant to do. Currently in Omaha, we have over 9,000 cases pending in our immigration court. Immigration court cases tend to be very complex. They tend to take a long time. I have clients, I've been practicing for almost 15 years, and I have clients who have been in immigration proceedings or an immigration court for over a decade, meaning they have been litigating their case for over a decade. This is the work in immigration court is extremely time intensive. It's very complicated. And so not a lot of attorneys like to do this kind of work, or they have to be very careful about how much of this work they take on. And we also know that the nonprofit sector, we've got some great nonprofits here in Omaha that do this kind of work, but they too need to be careful about how much work they take on so that they can competently represent clients. And as a result, we see that there are people who have to proceed pro se because there's not enough access either through the nonprofit sector, or they don't have the funds to hire a private attorney. And so I started the Immigration Court Representation Project to kind of bridge this gap. And essentially what we have done is created a committee that selected a few immigration attorneys that they felt comfortable and confident. And then I was able to seek funding from some private funders here in Omaha to provide money that we could then, as cases came to our attention that we felt like needed good representation and could be successful, we were able to then provide money to private attorneys to represent these individuals. So in essence, what this project does is it provides money for individuals to essentially hire a private attorney to represent them in immigration court. And this is very important, and we've seen this actually utilized, or our project has been utilized quite a bit on the detained docket. So in removal proceedings, immigrants can be detained by ICE, or Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This can be for a variety of reasons, but essentially what happens when an immigrant is detained is that ICE makes an initial custody determination. They can either set a bond for that person, or they can determine that that person is not bond eligible, or they can say, we're not going to give them a bond in our own discretion. And at that point, then the immigrant has to present their case to an immigration judge and ask for a bond. This is a crucial part of the case, because what we know is that the Department of Homeland Security uses detention as a litigation strategy. Statistically, immigrants who are detained have a much greater chance of being deported than those who are not, for a few reasons. One of them is access to counsel. The other is ability to help their counsel prepare their case, because oftentimes when we're preparing a defense, we need our clients to help us obtain a lot of documents in support of that defense. And cases when a client is detained, they can't do that. Additionally, cases on the detained docket move at a very fast pace. So we're really time crunched, and all those factors come into play and make it much more likely that someone will not be able to win their case. So getting someone out on bond is very important in the immigration setting. And so what this project has been able to do is help provide funds for people to hire an attorney to help in that bond phase of the case so that they're able to get out, and then they're able to report for court, they're able to return to their family, maybe even get a work permit through an application, and have time to participate in and present a strong defense. In other cases, we've been able to pay private attorneys to represent someone who is not able to get out on bond to take their case. And this is crucial. And our project has seen great success in our cases that we've taken on. And so we are very happy, and we hope to be able to continue this project because we know that it is extremely important for people to have access to competent representation in immigration court proceedings, but oftentimes that can be very hard to find because the private bar is small and overwhelmed, and the nonprofits are also overwhelmed. So this is a project that we hope to be able to continue to grow. As time goes on, we hope that we can get more funding and be able to grow it in cooperation with the private bar and the nonprofit sector, because it is very important for people to be able to have the opportunity to present a defense so that they can stay here and stay with their families. So I'm very happy to be able to have the chance to talk to you about this project. It's in its fairly early phases. And if anyone has any questions about the project or would like to know more about the project, you can always reach out to me through OLLAS or through my firm. And I hope that I can see some of you in my immigration law class in the future. Thank you.